Good morning. It's a beautiful day at Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. Happy Pride. Happy Father's Day, Baba's Day to all those who celebrate, and love and support to those for whom today is a challenge. I'm Abhi Janamanchi. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm honored to serve you as your senior minister. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are joining us from, whatever your beliefs, your gender identity and expression, or your immigration status, we welcome you to worship this morning. If you're joining us for the first time today, please let us know in the live chat. If you're new or feel new, we invite you to complete the newcomer form that will be linked in the chat. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member of this religious community and joining the movement, please reach out to Reverend Katie, my colleague, at kromanogriffin@cedarlane.org. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of the ministry team. Betsy Binks, our pastoral care coordinator, is available today in the chat to support you. Thank you, Betsy, for your ministry. At this time, I invite us to center ourselves, bringing our mind, body, and spirit into the space made sacred by our presence and the presence of the holy for a sacred UU ritual of announcements. Next Sunday, let us all join our fellow Unitarian Universalists from around the country and the world for the UUA General Assembly's Sunday worship service, which will be at 10 a.m. Eastern. 10 a.m. Eastern, not 11 o'clock. So our service next Sunday on YouTube, on this channel, will be at 10 a.m. The Reverend Joan Javier Duval, minister of the Unitarian Church of Montpelier, Vermont, will be leading the service along with the Reverend Michael Slack, community minister for worship and spiritual care for Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, BLUE, and a 140-member virtual choir. I also hear that Emma's Revolution will also be a part of the service, so not to be missed, friends. And then we will convene at 4 o'clock next Sunday, joining to celebrate and honor our director of music, Dr. Henry Sgrecci, with a special tribute as he eases into retirement. As you all know, last Sunday, our annual meeting, we affirmed Dr. Sgrecci as our Director of Music Emeritus, honoring his long years of dedication, commitment, and service to Cedar Lane. So I hope you will join many of us next Sunday at 4 o'clock for this special tribute. The annual fund campaign, as you all know, resumed 2 weeks ago. And the goal is $900,000. Thanks to many of you, 273 pledging families, the campaign has now raised over $745,000. So thank you to all who have been sending your pledges in. And over the next 2 weeks, I hope that every member and friend will make or increase your pledge so we can meet our goal. Because the year ahead is going to be more than challenging. And when the gap is greater, our generosity needs to be greater, friends. During this pandemic, it is natural to focus on what we have lost. But for just a few moments, I invite you to focus on what we have all gained. All the small and not so small acts of kindness and generosity that I get to bear witness to, done by our members and our friends. Here are just a few. The number of people who have given of their creativity, time, and talent to help make our worship services so wonderful and inspirational, especially our amazing AV team and our music staff and choir members who have learned and mastered new technologies to provide incredible worship Sunday after Sunday after Sunday. the ways in which people have been calling and comforting one another, being there for each other, delivering groceries and medicines, and making that connection that is so vital to all of our well-being. The parents and families who have maintained a deep commitment to support their children's spiritual lives and religious education while still trying to work at home. The continued efforts to ensure the well-being of our sanctuary guest, Doña Rosa, and support her ongoing efforts toward full freedom. The many gifts to the discretionary fund that provide emergency assistance to members in need, and the generous support of the Share the Plate offerings that in turn have supported community organizations in our county and region doing critical work. The many ways in which people have been showing up in person and online, witnessing for justice, equality, and the vision of the beloved community where all souls are welcome. The number of people who have continued to faithfully pay their pledge or pay them full early and pledge for next year to ensure that our staff can be paid and for our vital ministries to continue. For all that you do to make our community work and for all that you don't see every day, please, please know that you are making a real and sustaining difference in real people's lives. So 2 more weeks to raise about $155,000. We can do so much more with your support and commitment, even more than our initial challenge. So thank you for supporting Cedar Lane and its mission and ministry to equip each other, support our leaders, and advance our UU values and convictions in this prophetic and profound time. If you have not done so directly already, please make your pledge today. Let us all do our part and make love work at Cedar Lane. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rajendran, and this is Pooja and Payal. We have been part of the Cedar Lane Church for the last 3.5 years. We love this church. What I personally like about this church is their commitment to social justice, climate change, and a lot of other things, but these 2 things are really important to me. And I'm not able to give my time fully because of my work commitments. I'm trying my best, but I want to really encourage and support everybody else in the church who's so committed to all these issues. And I'm also very thankful for all the online sessions we've been having because of COVID-19. The team has done a phenomenal job of organizing these online sessions. I want to sincerely thank everybody who made this happen.
I just want to say that Cedar Lane is a very understanding community. I've only felt acceptance, no judgment, and I've met so many amazing people who have taught me the importance of sharing everyone's culture and religion, and this has had a very big impact on me. So thank you, Cedar Lane.
Hi everyone. The reason I like Cedar Lane is because it's a great community that celebrates a lot of different cultures and traditions, especially the Diwali and Holi celebrations that take place every year. We really enjoy that. Thank you.
They will march, walk, wheel, dance, shimmy, and shake, block upon block of undulating color, flash, banners, signs, clothing or lack thereof, hands raised, hands linked, apart together.
Singing, shouting, chanting, silent, joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry, happy, delirious, tentative, ecstatic, courageous, brave, free.
Stereotype, the unrecognizable, the flamboyant, the ordinary, the parent, the child, the runaway, the lost, the lonely, the found.
Gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, questioning, allies, those who taunt and jeer, Their banners of hate 10 feet tall. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Burn in hell. The other slogans, straight but not narrow. I love my gay child. Side with love.
One day a year, one out of 365. Mardi Gras out of season, festive, bacchanalian, tame, booths, food, shopping.
Underneath there is a history, resistance. It was the marginalized of the marginalized. Drag queens, transvestites, the butch, and the femme. In their tired rage, stood up, rose up, fought back, holding the police captive in the bars they had come to raid. Their weapons, their oppression, their hands, beer bottles. Stonewall, 6 days of riots in New York, June 1969. A year later, a march in Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, LA, San Fran. And now, any weekend in June, anywhere around the world, Pride.
Why do we march?
For those who are not able, for those who have been murdered, for those who are still beaten, still taunted, still harassed, still victims, still targets.
Why do we march?
Because some truths ain't self-evident, because all men ain't protected equal, and we love a good party.
We will march, walk, wheel, dance, shimmy, and shake, block upon block of undulating color, flash, banners, signs, clothing, or lack thereof. Hands raised, hands linked, apart, together, singing, shouting, chanting, silent. Joyous, tearful, nervous, afraid, proud, defiant, angry, happy, delirious, tentative, ecstatic, courageous, brave, free.
Good morning. I am Fran Flieger and my pronouns are she, her.
Good morning. I am Michael Thorne. My pronouns are he, him. We are the worship associates for today's service.
If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light it now.
Let us know in the chat where you are by sharing the chalice is lit in your neighborhood, town, state, from wherever you are in the world. I am lighting the chalice in Wheaton, Maryland.
And I'm lighting mine in Silver Spring, Maryland, and it's a lamp, so you'll need to take my word for it.
Please join us in sharing in unison the chalice lighting words on your screen.
We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment.
We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who persevere, who rise on the side of love for all.
We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in this world, that they may have hope.
We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love.
We light this flame
to celebrate our kaleidoscope of diversity,
working, loving, and living on the side of love.
For this, we light this flame.
Put a little love in your and see. Another day goes by, and still the children cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know, we won't let hatred grow. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope when you decide, kindness will be your guide. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Put a little love in. Put a little love in. Put a little love in your heart. In your heart.
Square Zare Pear, written by Jace Peoples, illustrated by Christine Knopp. In the magical land of Hanamadu, there lived fantastic creatures, always paired in twos. They grew in fields of the purple plant patch that laid spotted eggs from which they would hatch. They paired in two shapes, one round with one square, and the name of their tribe was the Manadu Zare. Once they had paired, their tails became one, joining the two in work, play, and fun. Yes, one tail was shared by each Zare pair, always in twos, one round with one square. In huts they dwelled in the valley of Mies, eating low fruit from the red berry trees. The tribe lived in peace, or so I am told, until a new pairing came to their fold. Two squares had joined, their tails became one. Such a Zare pairing had never been done. The others ran fast to see this square pair. They flocked with heads cocked, they mocked and they stared. "How can you two bond without a round half?" they said as they giggled, pointed, and laughed. "Away with you both, you'll poison our minds. The true Manadu Zares are not like your kind." Sad, the squares ran from the valley of Mies to a hill top with two red berry trees. There the square pair built a hut of their own, where they could still see the village they'd known. Like this they lived for 6 days and a night, before they'd eaten all the low fruit in sight. That's when they looked up and let out a sigh. There were more berries and branches up high. Although climbing up first gave them a fright, the square pair still tried with all of their might. They found they could do what no Zares had done. They joined their square paws and climbed up as one. Up high the berries were red, ripe, and round. much sweeter than those that were near the ground. These are most lovely, one square said with glee. Yes, said the other, quite nice, I agree. Let's bring a few down to our hilltop home, though it's a shame we will eat them alone. Many weeks passed by, and though the squares thrived, it wasn't long before winter arrived. From angry dark clouds fell great storms of snow that covered the hill and village below. The Zares had never seen storms such as these, storms that left piles of snow on the trees. The low-hanging berries all the Zares ate fell flat on the ground from the snowfall's weight. The only berries untouched by the freeze were the ones at the tip-top of the trees. The Zares in the village, though they did try, couldn't quite reach those berries up high. Every Zare pear who began to climb quickly came tumbling down in no time. The Zares became scared, tears ran down their snout. They stamped about, pouted, and then finally cried out, "What will we do? There's no fruit left to eat. Not one pair of Zares can manage this feat." But the square pair, as they watched from up high, said, "We cannot let those hungry Zares cry." They ran down the hill as fast as they could, quick to lend a hand, as friendly Zares should. They linked their square paws and climbed with much ease to the tip-top of those red berry trees. They brought down berries for Zares who had none, till all Zares were fed, yes, every last one. Then the oldest of all the Zare pairs approached the squares with the greatest care. With heads held low, for they were ashamed, they hugged the squares tightly and then proclaimed, "These two squares have pure and true Mandu hearts, but were mistreated and made to depart. Because they're different, we sent them away, yet it's their difference that saved us today." This pair of square Zares knew what we should. All happy pairs of Zares are quite good. Let's not forget what we've learned this day. Each pair is special, yes, in their own way. Then the whole village jumped and rejoiced. Together they sang with united voice, "From this day forth we all do declare, these square Zares are a fine Mandu pair." But that's not the end, I'm happy to say, 'cause something fabulous happened that day. With their hearts now open, their minds had grown. Soon each pair learned unique skills of their own. Just like the squares who climbed the trees high, another pair found they could leap to the sky. And swim deep down to the ocean floor was a breeze for one pair instead of a chore. Another could run with lightning speed, while the eldest pair were their wisest indeed. For each pair was special, yes, it was true, just as they'd said, and now every Zare knew. Today, if you listen and close your eyes tight, they will say you can hear the Zares sing with delight. It matters not if you're round, mixed, or square, with every Zare pair we work, play, and share. The end.
Thank you, Tim, for that beautiful story celebrating the diversity of couples and families. Each Sunday, we take up an offering to support the mission and ministry of Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. The Reverend Erica Hewitt writes, "The offering that we take each Sunday isn't just a stale habit. It's an opportunity to recommit to this place and to this people. Our offering is an affirmation, a yes. When we give, we say yes to something we value. With our gifts freely given, may we say yes to the values of our faith. May our offering help us practice Unitarian Universalism within and beyond our congregation as tools to empower us to make love work within, among, and beyond." Today, our offering will be shared with Casa Ruby. Casa Ruby is a community services center in Washington, D.C. that provides emergency housing for homeless LGBTQ youth and adults and services for the transgender community. According to Casa Ruby's executive director and founder, Ruby Corrado, with the spread of the coronavirus, many service organizations made the difficult choice to temporarily suspend their on-site services. But this was not possible for Casa Ruby because we are their home. We have remained open for in-person services during this pandemic. For LGBTQ youth experiencing houselessness and vulnerability, we are their first responders. And now they need us more than ever. We need to keep our doors open. We must be there for each other as a family. Every single day, we must be here for our youth. We hope that you will be here for us too and support in any way you can. My friends, I hope we will join together in supporting Casa Ruby as they seek to support LGBTQ youth, especially those who are houseless and seeking a place of safety and shelter in this time. You can give by electronic means of the modern era, by texting or online giving or PayPal or QR code, or by following the ancient spiritual practice of mailing your check to 9601 Cedar Lane, Bethesda, Maryland 20814. As Jenny Crane sings Stonewall Nation, please join me in supporting the critical work of Casa Ruby and Cedar Lane in these trying and troubled times. As always, I thank you for your generosity and support.
This song was written 2 years after the Stonewall riots by a young woman named Madeline Davis on her way home from one of the very first Pride marches. Just imagine yourself, you've been through this amazing experience, you're thrilled and ready to help make change in the world, and you write the lyrics to this song. It's called Stonewall Nation. I don't want to see my brothers kicked into the dust no more. Their dreams all turn to rust no more, no more, no more. I don't want to see my sisters having to give in no more. Their loving
We gather each week to bear witness to the joys and sorrows of our community as companions on life's journey. If you would like a joy or sorrow lifted up during the service, I invite you to send it to pastoralcare@cedarlane.org. If you normally light a candle of intention in the sanctuary, I invite you to light a candle at home and to share it in the chat during this ritual. Within our Cedar Lane community, we rejoice with Harold Quayle.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Reverend Abi, for this opportunity to offer a reflection on my time.
We gather each week to bear witness to the joys and sorrows of our community as companions on life's journey. If you would like a joy or sorrow lifted up during the service, I invite you to send it to pastoralcare@cedarlane.org. If you normally light a candle of intention in the sanctuary, I invite you to light a candle at home and to share it in the chat during this ritual. Within our Cedar Lane community, we rejoice with Harold Quayle, who has had his first 2 great-grandchildren born 15 days apart. And this week, we celebrate the Supreme Court's decision giving further employment rights to those in the LGBTQ+ community. We also celebrate the Supreme Court decision to allow the Deferred Action on Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, to be reinstated. Our caring extends beyond the Cedar Lane community to all those whose lives are taken and impacted by the calamities of our world. We hold in our hearts all who have died from COVID-19, all who are sick with COVID-19, and all who are caring for someone with COVID-19. We hold in our hearts and continue to say the names of George Floyd and other victims of vigilante and extrajudicial killings. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Robert White, Emmanuel Okatuga, Finan Bure, David McAtee, and Rashard Brooks. May their names be remembered, and may we continue to fight for justice in their honor. And now I invite you into a time of prayer and reflection with Reverend Archie.
This prayer is by the Reverend Sunshine Jeremiah Wolf and is typically used for Trans Day of Remembrance. But I'd like to use it today and every day to remember the many lives that have been lost to hate and violence. Would you pray with me? Oh, infinite love, help me face this day. My heart weeps with fear of violence, of invisibility, of hatred. Open me to beauty and wholeness, to love and laughter. I am enough. We are enough. I live in the sacred in-between. I embody the connectivity and allness of the infinite. May I remember that I am inherently sacred by my existence. My heart is filled with magnificent diversity of which I am a small piece. May I remember I am a part of the spectacular beauty of a diverse world. Dependent on that diversity, my existence is for its survival. When I feel lost, may I hold to the earth and to community. When I feel invisible, may I have the strength to shout glorious gratitude from the rooftops for all who have seen me. When violence is before me, I ask for grace through the next moment. When I feel connected, may I share my love with those around me. When I feel seen, may I see others in need. When I am secure, may I rise up for the security of others. O Infinite One, I sit within you and shine you out to the world, that we may know grace even when we do not live up to our most grounded values. We are life, and we are lives worth living, and my life is valuable as all lives. O Infinite One, thank you for the gift of the transcendent both, all, and infinite, minimal, glue, connectivity. May I rest in that transcendent space today and for all the days to come. Amen and Ashe. During the silence, those grieving a loss or commemorating an anniversary of a loss are invited to rise or share the names in the chat in mourning and memory. Let us enter the silence together.
This is what New York City's Pride celebration looked like last year. And this is more like what it will look like this year. A forum on Zoom in which members of the LGBTQ community will team up with Black activists for discussions about social justice. Sarah Kate Ellis is the president and CEO of GLAD.
We're going to talk about how do we change things? How can white people be better allies? LGBTQ people, white people be better allies? What is the change that we need to get behind? How can we point people in our community to what change needs to happen? And so I think there'll be more of a conversation around racial justice and how we can support it and how we can be there to move it forward.
Initiatives between African American and LGBTQ communities are multiplying in the wake of global protests calling for racial equality. Ellis sees this as the LGBTQ community returning to its roots, noting that Pride started as a riot led by two trans women of color at the Stonewall Inn in New York in 1969.
Pride has always been intersectional and making sure that we're representing our community, Black trans people, people of color, people with disabilities. I think that we're at a moment, right? And we can step up even further, even more in this moment.
This forum, held earlier in the week, was organized by Emil Wilbekin, founder of the gay empowerment group Native Son. Some 100 Black gay executives and entrepreneurs participated.
Black gay men are stepping up and leading, and I think it's our time to not just to lead, but to actually be in the light and to empower our own community as we empower the world.
I am a Black gay man.
J. August Richards, a gay Black actor on the NBC series Council of Dads, said he doesn't mind missing out on the usual celebrations because of the momentum from global demonstrations.
I think that we're asking people to show up for us. We're asking for allies, and there's a large conversation to be had about queer and gay people of color. And, we experience a different set of circumstances under which to either come out or live your life openly, or different challenges. And so I think it's amazing, and I pray that it doesn't end here. I hope that there's a continued conversation and a continued inclusion and a continued invitation. That's what I hope for.
Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings a tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and so must be the storm that could abolish the little bird that kept so many warm, so warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Reverend Abi, for this opportunity to offer a reflection on my time as Cedar Lane's Director of Music. The phrase from Peter Jones' song, "I Was a Stranger and You Took Me In," often comes to mind when I think back to the beginning of my tenure at Cedar Lane. I had retired from the military with a host of honors, had a newly minted doctorate in conducting, but was spurned by higher education due to my lack of experience, and wasn't rehired as the director of orchestras at T.C. Williams High School because my violin skills were lacking. Yes, my life was at a low ebb when Senior Minister Roger Fritz and the search committee took a gamble on hiring the Catholic fellow from the Army as interim director of music. I began in October of 2008. It seems like a lifetime ago, with such a rich cache of memories. Hiring Tom Guthrie as our organist, such a character who played brilliantly but had enough quirks in his personality to keep me on my toes. I recall the special music for that first Christmas Eve service. Daniel Pinkham's Christmas cantata for choir, brass, and organ was in the library. I thought to myself, I've played this work a couple of dozen times, probably know it better than any singer here. One could say that my job status hinged on the success of that service, hiring a host of brass players and asking our UU choir members to sing a Latin version of Christian text. But It went well. Guthrie played the heck out of the hymns, and we moved into spring feeling quite good. Yes, there were those who felt that our choices of anthems leaned toward Christian tenets, and they would have none of that. Little did they realize that the massive Cedar Lane Music Library was full of such works that Mr. Guthrie, the choir, and I knew well. They were familiar, and at a time when I was in my infancy as a choral director, they served us well. I've had plenty of help from an amazing array of dedicated musicians, talented, enthusiastic singers, ringers, and instrumentalists, young and older, some skilled and some not quite so much. I'm particularly grateful to Susanna Vesey and more recently Susan Easterly, who've been at the piano for our young choirs. Jenny Crane, whose leadership of the children's choir has been a marvelous addition to our music ministry. Jenny Lynn Moyer, Rachel Moore, and Kevin Miller, who have led the choir's excellence and have contributed significantly during the COVID shutdown, and many Cedar Lane musicians who have had a hand in the diversity of our music ministry. Chris Morrow, Steve Jones, David Meredith, Liz Brinker, Jane Moore, Susan McNellis, pianist Shuai Wang, and those numerous guest musicians who helped create some of the finest music in town on the occasions of our benefit concerts, in which we've raised close to $60,000 for local charities. And of course, to my colleague and friend, Dr. Jasmine Lee, whose musicianship and lively personality have been a blessing to me, to our choir, and to the congregation as a whole. I began my education as a UU music director in earnest in June of 2009, attending my first UUMN conference in Portland, Oregon, and getting a full dose of current relevant UU music and 2 significant lessons from the Dean of UU Music Directors, Mark Schlager of First Church in Portland. He said to me, "Greatest hits of the 1750s? Yep, done that. Brahms and Mozart? Done that. Great masses? Yep, done that." But none of those are relevant today. And when he led the Sunday morning service, he led the service. With his energy and gesticulations, I thought he belonged in television. But from being the lesson I came to realize over the years is how much energy one must commit to being a UU song leader. And it has nothing to do with singing like an operatic tenor, which you all know I cannot do. No, it means conveying the energy of the song with such strong conviction that you all can't help but become engaged. Putting those hymnals on your chairs, allowing your feet to loosen their grip on the floor beneath, loosening your knees and your hips, letting them unlock a bit, and showing some personality as you heartily sing the good news that is Cedar Lane. And there must be good news. We know all too well from our collective experiences of the last few months that bad news abounds from all corners. The coronavirus has dictated confinement and a government-mandated behavior, the likes of which many of us have never experienced. Families and close friends were told to stay away. Lives were lost. Jobs were in jeopardy. Fathers and mothers who had never suffered the indignity of being poor were suddenly standing in food lines. And our hearts break for the hundreds of families who lost beloved grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters without having a chance to say goodbye or create proper funeral arrangements and memorial services. And then came the shootings, senseless and seemingly lawless behavior from those charged with upholding the law. Police and sheriff departments, whom most had held as a beacon of safety in America, seemingly overnight had become the bad guys. Was it really just overnight? Or was it that we who had known privilege so long had received an overdue wake-up call? A bugler's reveille fraught with urgency because all around us the phrase systemic racism was playing out before our very eyes in city after city. The media replaying horrific scenes of black men being beaten, suffocated, or shot to death. Except this time, the poor, the impoverished, and the disenfranchised were sounding charge as Americans of colors, races, and genders took to the streets from sea to shining sea in protest. So where is the good news? Where is the hope? What can we cling to when the very essence of life as we have known it has lost its compass? Well, many of us, yours truly included, can start by acknowledging that we've been blessed with privilege and that we need to do more than pray for our fellow Americans. Cedar Lane has done just that for Doña Rosa Gutierrez Lopez, marshaling a circle of love, support, judicial action, and hope that she would someday know the freedom that she sought the day she crossed the border into these United States. Today, we rejoice in the good news of her 60-day stay of freedom and the hope of its continuation. We can embrace Black Lives Matter as though our lives depend upon it. We can heed the pleas of those of color and understand their plight of living in cramped apartments where COVID spread rampantly. We can contribute food or funds to those organizations that look out for those who do not have enough to eat or a bed on which to sleep. I'll never forget the words of Mark Begell of A Wider Circle. He said, "It's amazing what someone can accomplish when they get a good night's sleep. We can stand strong against police brutality. We can rejoice that the public officials like Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia has acknowledged that June 19th, or Juneteenth as it is known, become a national holiday recognizing the official end of slavery. And above all, we can rejoice in the Supreme Court's landmark ruling that finally gave the LGBT community its greatest achievement in this country, declaring on Monday, June 15, 2020, that no employer may discriminate an employee on the basis of gender." We must have hope, folks. It's an essential part of the human psyche. If we do not have hope, we'll never let the sun shine in. We'll never view the thing with feathers that soars so effortlessly toward the clouds. And if we have no hope for change now, then we've progressed no further than in 2019 or 1919. We're all struggling to adapt to a new world of the unknown. We don't know how long we'll need to wear face masks and maintain social distancing. We don't know how our food chain may be interrupted by the absence of farm workers and food processors. We don't know if the person standing next to us could be a friend or a COVID foe. They might not know themselves. We don't know the fear of Black parents as they send their children out the door. Will they come home alive? Most of us don't know the harassment of one who chooses a different life choice. Jackie DeShannon chose the title, "Put a Little Love in Your Heart," because it was a phrase her mother often said. Put a little love in your heart, because someone is always needing to be picked up. Now is the time, folks. Now is the time to have hope, to hold hope, to show love, and to take care of each other. Now is the time to sing the good news that is Cedar Lane. You're in good hands with Reverend Abi Janamanchi as your senior minister and Jen Morley as administrator. They are incredibly competent, gifted, and wise. They, along with the senior staff, Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, Tim Atkins, Dana Edwards, Ashley Del Sol, Claire Jaycox, Olivia James, Jose Morant, and his good colleague Rufo, love the Cedar Lane congregation. They take their work seriously and are all in for you. I ask that you in turn take good care of them. Do not take their presence for granted, and perhaps go out of your way to thank them for their diligence on your behalf. And for goodness sake, make your pledges. Their livelihoods and the welfare of the long-standing Cedar Lane congregation depend upon your generosity. Finally, I thank you for the opportunity to serve and wish you well in the future. I leave our beloved music ministry in the capable hands of the team led by Chair Susan Modak and co-music coordinators Dr. Jasmine Lee and Jenny Lynn Moyer, with Cedar Laner Travis Plager taking my place in the vocal quartet. Take care, God bless, Namaste, and stay well.
Henry, thank you for your powerful reflection and for your many years of dedicated service, commitment, and deep love for Cedar Lane. You will be missed, and I will miss you. Before we close, I'd like to thank all those who helped make today's service possible. Reverend Archine Turner, Tim Atkins, Dana Edwards, Doctors Henry Sgrecci and Jasmine Lee, Jenny Crane, Rachel Moore, Jenny Lynn Moyer, Kevin Miller, Bel Canto, and the Cedar Lane Choir. And thank you to members of our AV team, Barb Thompson, Mike Morse, Don Woodruff, Michael McCrickard, and Todd Chernikoff, our visual arts team, Rebecca Nachtrieb and Don Woodruff, for creating those gorgeous in-gathering and service slides. Thank you to our membership coordinator, Roger Santo Domingo, and Betsy Binks, our pastoral care coordinator, who have been active throughout our live chat in this service. We'd love for all of you to stay in touch. I hope you will join us today for a special virtual coffee hour. Our Cedar Lane members and friends, those who are allies, we will be joining together at our usual coffee hour, and the Zoom link will be in your chat. And then there will be a healing circle for our LGBTQ community members at a different Zoom room, and that link is also being posted in the chat. Henry talked about having hope and carrying it forward with actions. Well, it's been an incredible week. As we heard twice last week, the Supreme Court delivered an affirmation of the rule of law and sustained our hope in Theodore Parker's vision that the moral arc of the universe does bend toward justice. I mean, who could have predicted that the court would rule that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 forbids job discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity, with Justice Neil Gorsuch and Chief Justice Roberts joining the majority to make the decision 6-3. And who could have predicted, on the president's favorite wellspring for hate, immigration, that the court would support the rule of law, again with Chief Justice Roberts joining the liberal majority. So DACA lives, and GLBTQ people have more protection from discrimination in the workplace. Also, the police killer of Rashad Brooks in Atlanta was charged with murder. And the protests and the marches against police brutality and systemic racism continue unabated for almost 4 weeks now. The 155th anniversary of Juneteenth was commemorated and celebrated by tens of thousands of people in over 500 events across the country. Unprecedented. And the Poor People's Campaign's digital mass meeting and assembly was watched yesterday by thousands and thousands of people, including nearly 100 Cedar Laners and over 500 Unitarian Universalists. There is an opening in these days. It is an opening made possible by the visibility of suffering that has always existed, and injustice and oppression that have always existed, but people are seeing it more clearly now. And the persistence of protests to do something to change it. At issue is how we will respond as individuals, as a religious community, and whether we will allow our system to settle back into its wicked ways that oppress so many, and let this moment pass. As the Reverend Dr. William Barber said yesterday, the worst mistake we can make with all the protest and struggle going on is to demand too little. He asked, and these will be our closing words. What kind of world would you breathe life into? What would you use your last breath for if you knew they were just a day or so away? Well, he said, it's time to live like our last breath could come any moment. It's time to use every breath left in our bodies to fight for love and truth and justice. It is time to believe again. It is time to challenge the lie that we don't have enough resources. It is time to believe and work as though we are sure that love is still greater than hate. Truth is still greater than lies. It is time to believe that the hungry can be fed, that the sick can be insured and cured, that immigrants can be welcomed, that the war machinery can be cut. It is time to believe that Black and white, poor and Latino can be organized into a new powerful coalition for change. It is time to come together and vote like never before. It is time, whether you are Black, brown, First Nation, Asian, gay, straight, trans, young or old, rural or from the cities. It is time to believe that the heart and soul of this democracy can live, that we can breathe into it the spirit of a genuine democracy. It is time, even if it takes nonviolent resistance, it is time with every breath we have, while we still have time, it is time to rise up. It is time to reconstruct. It is time for a moral revival that puts America together, that works for us all. It is time to show this world, this nation, that it is traveling wrong. It is time to show some beauty to a world that is wrong. It is time. This is why we are living. It is time to mobilize, to educate. It is time. We are living in time for this time. It is time. It is time. It is time. Let's do something in time to change time, because the time is right now. So let us answer, my friends, the call of this time, the call of love, with the yes of our lives. And to that, let us say amen. I can't hear you. Let us say amen. Thank you. So we're going to close our time with a special postlude that Jenny Lynn, Rachel, Kevin, and Jasmine created to wish Dr. Henry Sgrecci well as he eases into retirement. They are now going to sing "I Wish You Well, My Friend" by Don Bessig. Thank you, Henry.
Yesterday.